think I'm ready.
Okay. Yeah, so Marcus, well, thanks for joining us on Halftime Chat. One of the things that over the past 18 months, what we've noticed is since Versus and Past the Mic, there's been a lot of resurgence for people loving the artists from the 90s and 80s. And but one of the things that we focus on is actually the journeys of the artists, the actual how you got into music, how you made your way through, and of course you're part of High Five, but it's about your story. So we have got an international audience, so we always like to start from the very beginning. Where were you sort of born and raised?
I was born and raised in Waco, Texas. Yeah, small town in Texas, and it's Central Texas. So the music scene here was rather small, definitely. But it has a lot of great guys who were doing music back then, and R&B was the era that was really prominent at the time. So I guess my journey kind of started more so with, we definitely learned, music in church. We sang in church as kids, and that was kind of our introduction to music. But my dad, he was a DJ,
Okay.
so I was able to hear, all sorts of music from his experience. And I was a young kid, probably about 5 or 6, around his DJing days, and he would allow me to just listen to music and play music, when he was setting up. So that's really probably more so of, what brought me into the style of music that I like. Mhm.
Okay. You know what? When you, because I moved to America in '92, and Waco, I always remember David Koresh and the that's and Waco. So that's how your town
Yeah.
was made famous. But being from the middle of Texas, as a young child, was music just saying DJ with dad, church? Was it ever a dream that it would become a career, or was it more so just something you passed for fun?
Yeah, I would say for fun. Now, the thing was with in my particular situation now, my uncle, he was in a R&B group. They had signed a major record deal in the mid '80s. So I was able to kind of witness his experience and how things went. And I guess I recall, when I saw that it was, you know, uh, attainable. It was attainable that someone that close to me was able to, be successful in it. And it made me believe, okay, there is opportunity here. And that still kind of was like, I was into sports a lot, and I thought football would be, would take me to college and hopefully professional at some point. But yes, seeing my uncle, being successful and making money from it,
Oh,
it definitely influenced me. So always knowing Tony Thompson growing up and seeing how talented he was always in competition with my uncle's group band.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of how the story started, and Tony Thompson was always the victor in every competition.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So what happened was they would have talent shows here in Waco, and I think a couple years in a row Tony won them. My uncle's band, they always competed, came in second, but they were a couple years older than us, and so they pursued their career a lot stronger and were able to tie down a record deal. So, with them getting that access, once they signed, they came back and got Tony and formed the rest of us around the group. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What was the name of your uncle's group?
It's called Adore. And the thing is, they never released the music. Their music never got released. They signed a major deal. They were signed to Jive Records before us.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of some things happened contractually, and they were never able to finish the deal. So the one of the guys in the group, he actually was a writer and a producer for us, William Walton. He wrote the song that we got to deal with, our demo, I Know Love. So he wrote and produced that song, and he wrote several other songs for the first and second album.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of how we started from Waco. And I mean, once Jive connected us with Teddy Riley, then the story was history from there.
Yeah, but before we get to but it's because we still want to find out then how did your singing develop from from listening to your dad? How did your singing develop before you met Tony?
Right. Well, and that's an interesting question. Like I never really considered myself a strong vocalist, and like we would sing around the house, and a lot of it just kind of once they asked me to be in the group, we would rehearse a lot and just kind of develop harmonies with each other. So I guess to answer that question, like I never felt I was a strong vocalist. I could, definitely do backgrounds. My tone was baritone, and
Okay.
I just was able to hold the low note and and fill in the harmony. Yeah.
Okay. But then whose idea was it to actually form, and recruit you into the group?
Well, it was William Walton initially finalized it, but so initially there were only three members. It was Tony Thompson, Toriano Easy, and Russell Neal. They were three members that they started shopping first. And then things weren't going well. I guess they shopped into a few labels, not really interested. So they came back to the table and added Roger Clark and myself. And that's how we became High Five.
But when they said added, so what were you doing when you saw them do? Did you think, oh, I wish I could join them, or were you just focused on football and college?
Yeah, I was focused on football, sports that way, and I was all like I said, I was always around because my uncle was really pivotal in Adore, which is the group who was signed first. So I was always around, and they would ask for my input on certain things. Not that it mattered, but I was I was just always there, kind of witnessing their experience. So and my uncle, he was saying, man, if you're interested, we would like you to try out for it. And I remember Russell kind of really just priming me, man, you fit the look, you fit the image, we liked your personality as well. And the thing was, we all grew up together. Like
Oh,
I
you knew
knew it.
them.
Yeah, we all knew each other, like just from school and playing sports together. I played basketball with Roderick, basketball with Russell in Pee Wee League. Tony played baseball, and we used to compete in baseball in the Eastern Little League. So we all knew each other growing up. It was a really close family knit. So, you know, I think that when they were choosing members, they just wanted to choose people that they were comfortable with and they felt kind of fit the image at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, but you said, but were you doing any singing prior to this, though? Were you singing consistently?
Not really, not really. No, yeah. So that's the thing. It was kind of like a really new experience for me, and so like I said, I was in the studio when they would record. Just kind of seeing how the process works, but I wasn't really doing a lot of singing. I mean, obviously I was with them, and sometimes we would like things and we would repeat what we heard, but
Yeah.
I never really tried it professionally per se.
Wow.
Hmm.
But then did you feel like you wanted to? Because if you really into your sports, well, how was that decision to say I have to leave sports to go the music route? I mean,
Well, that's an interesting question. So I did. I encountered an injury.
ah,
Uh, Ninth grade. Yeah, it was a really bad injury. So they told me if you keep playing, it could become worse or not. So that kind of deterred me from the sports idea. And it was a struggle for me because I still continued to play, but as things seemed prominent with the music, I started gearing towards that more. Yeah.
What about your family? Your parents. What were their thoughts about leaving the sports and then doing the music?
It was a struggle. It really was a struggle because my parents obviously at the time, didn't think that it was going, they didn't see the opportunity in it. It's like, we want you to have a stable future.
Yeah.
So, we kind of had some ups and downs back and forth with it. And once it came time to put, the ink on the paper, I pretty much had to beg and tell them, hey, this is what I really want to do. And so God's will and God's blessing, it went that way.
Okay. Now we hear. I mean, I've probably interviewed 50 90s and 80s R acts, and we talk about when you say put pen to paper. Now you've got an uncle who's was in a group signed to Jive, had contractual issues. Did they explain to you guys what you were signing to make sure that you're okay?
Well, this was the term that I recall. There's a standard deal that everybody's offered, and we got the standard deal. And obviously, 30 years later, the standard deal is never in the artist's benefit. But luckily, here's one thing: when you are experiencing success, you have an opportunity to renegotiate. And
Okay.
so that was one thing that kind of worked in our favor. But overall, we got the standard deal, which nobody likes as an artist, and we just kind of had to work through it and develop a better deal for us. Mhm.
Yeah. So when you're signing, most of us have seen, from New Edition growing as a kid, you see them and you're like, wow, I've got a chance. Do you even bother reading? Do you just say, where do I sign? We're gonna be.
Yeah. I mean, you got to realize I was 15, 16. Those words were incomprehensible to me. So, and the thing is, you hire an attorney and, you try to understand what you can. But I'll say this, as a teenager and just having that opportunity, we were just excited to be able to be doing something, right? And we figured the money will just work itself out. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would encourage anybody at this time and age, make sure you know what you're reading, what you're getting yourself into. And times have definitely changed now where artists have a lot of more control over, their music and how their careers develop. So,
Yeah.
one thing I'll say is we were a test product back then. And like, to be honest, we were Jive's first R&B artist ever released. They had
Okay.
rap groups, they had
Kumodi.
videos. Yeah, and they had a few solo R&B acts, like Billy Ocean. I think they
No.
had Tyler Collins. So though, but they never dealt with a group, and so it was a first experience for us as well as the company. So, I'm thinking the best way to explain it is they saw it as, a trial run as
Okay.
well. Hmm.
So when you go back to those early days with the five of you, who were you modeling yourselves after?
Definitely New Edition. I mean,
Okay.
it was, we looked up to New Edition. Obviously, we liked Jackson Five, and even more current groups. Like we definitely love Troop. Um, Full Force. There were like a couple of artists that were late '80s that
Yeah.
were influential to us. So
Yeah.
we looked up to those guys, and that's who we mined our style after.
Yeah. I mean, goodness, when I just interviewed John from John Herald from Troop, and I told him that when I was in Nigeria, I actually thought Troop were dancers who could sing because all we
Mm,
knew about was just the way they just destroy the
yes.
dance floor. Then they sing as well. Um, but coming up, did you think, wow, how did you decide to have your own lane? Because you were much younger than them when you guys came out. So at that age, I'm thinking, 15, 16, there went, was anyone else at around your age that was coming out?
Um, Now the boys were,
Oh,
they were
yes,
a three-man group. Yeah, the boys were there. We definitely looked up to them. We liked them. Tevin Campbell was another,
Oh
guy who was
yes, yeah.
really, having some success at the time. So, I mean, and those were artists that we like. Definitely Tony. Tony, he loved Tevin Campbell. He listened to Tevin all the time. But so what happened was with our name, initially when it was just the three, they were called Urban Youth.
Okay.
And when the five of us got together, we figured, hey, let's try something different. But so the way it developed is we were at a photo shoot, and after each scene or each take, we would give each other high fives, just having
Ah,
really good energy. And so the manager at the time, he says, hey, what do you guys think about the name High Five? And it's like, wow, because
yeah.
it was really natural. It was just a, response that we had because we were enjoying ourselves. We were, taking photos, and after each shot, we would,
Yeah,
give each
okay.
other high fives. So he says, "Hey, let's try that," and it stuck with us. So high five it is.
Now, because you guys grew up together, you knew each other from. How was the? Did you were you guys good friends? Because that's one thing that it's interesting to see as young kids. Now you're signed. Did you still remain friends in those very early days?
Be honest, we did, and I mean like, excuse me, you know, we all knew each other prior to the music, so that was really a benefit for us. And so the one thing is Roderick, his well, it's kind of like a family. I would just say that, his sister was married to the guy who produced us. So
Okay.
they were kind of like, brother-in-laws,
Mm.
and we all knew each other. So, and my uncle was best friends with the guy who produced us. So we really were tight knit, and even through the years, as any relationship or friendship, you have your rough moments, but overall, all of us are still pretty close.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you once Jive says, okay, we've heard your demo, we're gonna give you a shot. Did they say let's bring you to New York to start working on the album, or what was the situation?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Yeah. So we recorded the majority of the songs in New York. We did a few here in Waco and some in Oklahoma. Yeah.
How was it like moving to going to New York? Had you been before?
Oh no, that had never been. So that was a culture shock for myself.
I mean, explain because when I interviewed Basic Black, they came from Georgia, Columbus, Georgia, and they said New York was almost like moving to Mars. So Southerners moving to New York was like night and day. But for you, what was it really like coming from Waco?
That could definitely be a valid description, but it was, you hear all these things, you see all these things, and I guess like my uncle and his group had traveled there before, so I was able to hear some of their stories and maybe have an insight. But just getting there, it was nothing like I expected. You have a million people in one place, and when the term brick city is realized, that's what it is. It's the brick city. Coming from here, you get grass, you got trees,
Oh yeah, yeah.
animals. You don't see any of that in New York City. And I mean the traffic, taxis. So it was a culture shock. And us being from the South, they could pick us out off the crowd. Hey, these guys are not from here. But I became to like New York City. We would travel there so much and did so much business there that I developed a lot of relationships there. And even now I call some of them family. When I go there, I can go to their homes and eat. So
Okay.
it's definitely a difference. But my first experience, I was not sure how to expect it.
So, when did you guys realize? Had you known about Teddy Riley before you
Yes,
worked with
yes,
him?
yes. Guy. So yeah, I failed to mention Guy. We definitely listened to Guy and Keith Sweat. Al B. Sure. All of those guys were really successful and at the top of the game at the moment. So um, hearing that Teddy Riley was going to work on our project just really, really boosted our ego because
Wow.
it was we never expected that. And so the tracks he gave us obviously were well worth it, right?
Yeah, just can't handle it and Kissing Game. But what was the first one you worked on?
Just can't handle it. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. And now, whose idea when it came to singing? Now, because you mentioned Tony was such an amazing talent that he was winning the competition. Was it always agreed that Tony sings and everyone else backs him up, or was it? Did you ever then think, okay, I'm actually getting better. I should sing a little bit?
I no, I honestly, I never felt like that. Maybe there were times where other members may have felt that way. I never did. I just kind of my thought process was with that type of talent, it works best for us, to get the best product possible, and Tony could deliver it. So I think that just the process we had, let him lead, we sing the backs, everything is great, that way. And Toriano, easily the guy from Oklahoma, he was a really strong lead himself. He just had a nice baritone, and at the time, I think that they didn't really know what direction to take his voice in. So "Can't Wait Another Minute" was a really great song to show his vocal talent on. But a lot of other songs, I think people were just not ready to hear a young guy with such a deep voice, right?
Okay.
So, I always respected Tone to just be the lead singer and do, the best vocals possible. And, maybe down the road, if a song was, written for us, maybe it would have worked. So, but to answer your question, I never really thought of, being a second or third lead. Mhm.
Okay. You know when it's interesting because when Johnny joined New Edition for the Heartbreak album, I didn't warm to Johnny. I thought he was stealing Ralph's position. He was like, "Who's this guy?" You know, I just thought that why is he standing in front and he was singing all of the leads, and I didn't really warm to him because I just thought Ralph's the guy and stuff. So I can imagine because Tony, what made Tony so special? Because you've said because as I said, we've all admired his charisma and his voice, but from seeing him up close, what did you think made him so special?
And I just, I mean, you had to see him sing in person. Like that was one thing that I mean, just I remember attending two of the talent shows that they were competing in, right? And this is a true story. My uncle and them, they were really talented, nice vocalists. They wrote their songs and all, but when they competed against Tony, it was just a different competition. So the second time that Tony beat them, oh, they were pretty upset about it. And so we got home after that performance, and they were kind of having a discussion. And so I told the guy, he's like, well, what do you think? And I said, hey man, you guys did great. I said, you guys did good. Tony did. He was great. Like, I just had to be honest with them. And, they kind of looked at me like, but I was giving them, my honest God truth. So the thing was just to see Tony perform at, 14, 15 and be able to do what he did live, it was just an honor to be able to witness it. And I always like admired him before we were successful. He was
Wow.
just a great vocalist. And anytime, even prior to us, recording, if we could, hey Tony, just sing for us, and I just loved it. We would
Wow.
always get him to sing. Yeah. So he had a spark about him, and he knew his vocal. Hmm.
Wow. So now you're in the studio with Teddy doing "Just Can't Handle It." I mean, what was it like working? I know there was Dave West and Bernard Bell who normally work with him, but what was it like being in the studio? Did you in a different level, working with him?
Well, the best way I could explain it is we were so inexperienced. We were just like, hey, whatever you say. And for the most part, like, Tony would go in and they were so, pleased with his vocal ability that, I think anything we did behind that was kind of like just a filler. But it was a great experience, just to be in their presence and to see how they, produce and work music. So My memories are really vague because I was probably more starstruck, just to see their presence, and just really happy that that he would even accept working on our project. Yeah.
So when Just Can't Handle It comes out, were you surprised how successful it became a hit on the radio?
That's a retrospective question because yeah, obviously I was, but then when you think about it, like that was, I mean, that was Teddy. Like he poured his heart into it. The New Jack Swing era was really
Mm.
new, fresh, and that track was amazing. And the crazy part is, we always thought "Just Can't Handle It" was better than "Kissing Game."
Yeah.
Just as an overall song because the way the intro came in and shows Tony doing the vocal. Oh my God, my words are just clouding. Like how he acapella, he did the vocal
Yeah.
acapella. So that was like wow, wow, wow. And Kissing Game to us, was a good song, but we never thought, wow, this will be bigger than Just Can't Handle It. And obviously being our first single and we really enjoyed the song, I think that we figured that would be the biggest one. Mhm.
Yeah. It's funny because as I said, so it coming out in 1990, I was still going to high school in Nigeria, and I remember Just Can't Handle It being very big out there, because it reminded us of him and me from today, but it was different. So it didn't sound like a copycat stuff. But it was really, really a powerful track, and it was really that 1990 albums were really powerful. I think Kissing Game was very similar to like when Fresh Prince came out with Summertime. It was one of those feel good songs, and it had a different vibe. Shanice's "I Like Your Smile." It felt like one of those songs that could cross over much easier than Just Can't Handle It. But I can
Right.
imagine at the time you're recording, you're not thinking about it. But as fans, coming out in that time, did it shock you how much that getting to number one on the Billboard charts? I mean, did that shock you?
Oh, that was a shock, man. I mean, and so by then, Kissing Game, I mean, our lives had changed by then. We were constantly on the road, promoting, touring, performing, and it happened so fast, that I just, it's like, wow, this is the life. But I mean, Kissing Game took us to places we never thought, to be honest.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, before we talk a little bit more about the success of that, how was being on the road and the performing? How did you, coming from a small town, adapt to being on stage in front of people shouting and screaming?
Initially there was all, we all had stage fright, but I think I just, I remember like our very first performance in Waco, Texas. It was at the
A homecoming kind of thing.
well, it was the fair, the local fair here. It's called the Heart of Texas Fair. So first performance, and the crazy part was our manager had gotten us a live band that we never rehearsed with.
Oh goodness.
And so yeah, it was an interesting performance. But the good thing was we were scheduled for two performances that night. I think one was at like a 7, and then one was like a 9 or 10. And so the way it happened, the local high school, the football stadium was right next to the fairground. So most people would go to the football game and then come to the fair afterwards.
Yeah.
So their thinking was, we would do a second performance so that the people who left the football game could still have an opportunity. So the first performance we did with the live band didn't go very well.
Wow.
So we told the manager, hey, we don't want the band on the second set. We would rather do tracks because we were just kind of more comfortable with performing with the tracks. And it went great. It went really great. Like the crowd accepted us and they appreciated it, and we felt like we could do this.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. What was your parents' reaction when you're coming out with Just Can't Handle It and Kissing Game, the success? How did they react?
Well, obviously now they're proud, things are working in our favor, so yes, they were really supportive. And you have to love parents because we were minors, they had to be involved in every
Yeah.
decision. So that was a whole nother aspect, thinking about, five minors, five parents every time something happens. And it was definitely costly on our budget because, you have to move 10 people every time.
Wow.
hmm
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Go
A lot
ahead.
of people don't think about it. So, I mean, eventually we kind of got to a point where, hey, once we were able to have a chaperone, someone who knew us all and could just kind of represent one parent in their best interest. And we did that for a while. And then once one member turned 18, we considered him the chaperone.
Okay. Now, did
And
somebody explain to you that as this is coming out of the cost of this, out in no.
well, they said it, but it doesn't, you don't receive it properly until you get your first statement saying, "Hey, how much you spent?" What So, I mean, but you have to abide by the law. You cannot work with minors without supervision.
Yeah.
So we had to go through surrogate court and all of that, being minors.
Wow.
And yeah, that was something else that was really new to us. Never knew anything about it. So um, you know, I mean, I think it worked out in our favor, but obviously, with the success and everything we had going, we wanted our freedom. So once one member turned 18, it really was a good thing for us.
How did it change you then? Because the success from the growing up in a small town and very close to your family. Now you're number one artist in the country. I mean, that's not easy. How did it change you
Not,
personally?
not at all. I don't know. People still tell me to this day, right? Like especially my close friends, and you're really humble. You kind of stay grounded, and I felt like I did. And the one thing about me is, when we would get off the road, come home to my family, I would always ask them, hey, don't treat me like that guy. Treat me as the person that y'all know and raised, and it really benefited me in the long run because even after a while, I just would ask, hey, let's not discuss what happens on the road. Not anything negative, but I just want to be normal, when I'm around y'all. I don't want to feel like it's always about, high fiving the music and things of
Mm.
that nature. So, my friends kind of adapted to the way I wanted to be treated and it helped me stay grounded. So
But
and don't get me wrong, I will say this. Now there were times when, I had to adjust my ego and hey, I'm Mac from High Five, don't do that. So but for the most part though, I think I balanced it pretty well. hmm
okay. Um, so Kissing Game, number one song in the country. What does that do for you guys?
Oh man. I'll say this, man. It was, I don't even know if there's a word for it, but I tell you what, the attention we got, I mean, you know, everybody wants a piece of it, at that moment. So one thing we were comfortable with is we stayed working. We were on the road, we promoted, we toured, and that's how we knew just how to stay busy. Making money was what we were doing at that time. So I mean, we went to Japan, they went to Africa, we were all over promoting Kissing Game.
Wow.
uh-huh. So that was just the greatest feeling, and to hit number one and not really expect it or realize it. Still to this day, I look at my gold records and be like, wow, number one in the country. Everybody knows this song
Yeah.
for that beat. hmm
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people didn't realize Teddy did it as well because he was more used to just can't handle it was more stuff. So a lot of people were like, wow, we didn't know he did that. So Jives, it's strange because you had the big album, does well, goes platinum, and then it's almost as if they try to get you back in right away. Um, who's competing with you guys on the charts? I know we can look at the charts, but when you looked around, who do you think? Okay, we need to. when now competing with this particular types of groups for the same type of audience?
I think one group that comes to mind was obviously Boys to Men. Yeah, yeah, they had came in and they really had some great songs. So, I think we met them and they were really down there as guys, but I think we kind of always had this underlying unspoken competition, right?
Okay.
And they did go on to be a really great, artist for sure. So I think
Okay.
Boyz II Men was one, and there were several, that would come around. Like we toured when we first toured. We toured with Troop. We toured with Tony.
Riff?
Mm, Riff, yeah, Riff was around. We didn't really cross paths with them as much at the time, but like I said, I think Troop was like really one of our big influences as well as competition. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so Boys to Men was definitely one of the groups I recall being, competition at that time. Mhm.
Because when you look at Boyz II Men, so their first album was very much like your first album, very New Jack and R&B. Their second album, they moved them to become more adult contemporary. Getting Babyface and Jimmy and Terry and doing more sort of ballads and sort of songs that can cross over. When you did your second album, one, I was surprised Teddy wasn't on there, but then R. Kelly was still, he was emerging as Jive's new artist and stuff. Whose direction was it to think, let's keep you guys with R&B and not capitalize on Kissing Game type of crossover songs?
Right. Um, I guess I would definitely say the company, the A&R at the company. I know Ann Carly, she was I think VP at the time, so she really was hands on with us. Kenny Mason, Linda Simmons, those were executives at the company who kind of helped develop. And I recall we were still promoting, the first album. I think we were probably on uh, Mary may have been a single, third or fourth single by then, but they introduced us to R. Kelly and they signed him. And we were in Chicago and we hung out with Rob, had a really good vibe with him. And so he's like, I'm going to write some good songs for you guys. And I think we met in California a couple of months, maybe a couple of weeks later. And, he started with Quality Time and then he just kind of built from there. So I think too, like we really, to be honest, um, we didn't look at ourselves as pop artists,
Yeah.
even still. It's kind of like, we wanted to stick to our people, our culture, and Tony's style was really, soulful. That's what the way I
Yeah.
saw it. And so, we just kind of stayed in that lane. But it's funny you say because there are still people who says, hey, y'all were a pop group, and that's a compliment now.
Yeah.
Seriously. It really is a compliment because a lot of the arenas we played, like we did Disney, for
Wow.
2 years in a row. So that to me is really, a stamp of approval that you're accepted by the pop genre.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because if you think about it, you guys were clean cut and you were different from Jodeci because when they came about, they almost became bad boys of R&B in the way they dressed and stuff. Um,
Mhm.
when they did come out, did it change what you guys thought you may have to do, or did it how did that influence you at all?
Yeah, like we were kind of always just flipping back and forth, and I do remember a time where we wanted to be, kind of more Jodeci style as a parent, and hey guys, no, that's not what we're gonna do, and we didn't realize at the time that it's best to have your own identity,
Yeah.
and so we kind of went through several phases, but we realized, hey, that is what our fans expect of us, is to be the clean cut. And our songs obviously were about, genuine
Yeah.
relationships and things like that. It wasn't just necessarily geared towards, the sex and things of that nature. So, looking back now, I think that was a benefit of ours just being like a genuine, you know, reaction between a male and a female. Mhm.
Yeah. Um, how much influence did you have um, as a group and even personally with the direction of the kind of songs you're doing? Did, and even being having able to contribute as a writer?
Not really, not really. Like we never, we would listen to songs and kind of just give feedback and input. But one good thing I could say is that the guy William Lawson, who was in my, the group was my uncle. He
Mm,
stayed around, and he was always kind of essential in helping us listen to songs and be, would help us choose songs, and he would always co-write on some things. So I think his influence as well kind of helped us stay in that love song, relationship type of
yeah.
format. Yeah,
Did you know about publishing and writing and how long-term beneficial it was to be able to?
I did not. You don't learn that part until it's almost too late. So we never wrote or produced on any of our music.
Wow. Did you guys know how to write or stuff?
Um, like we thought we did. Sometimes we would, hey, let's change this word or fix something what we thought felt better. But I never really dealt with writing much then. It wasn't until later on that I kind of developed a style for just putting my words on paper.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's strange because some people tell you that labels like people who don't know much because the more you know, the less they're likely to want to deal with you because it's more like you're going to ask too many questions. And that's the sad thing that you sign up and no one tells you that if you don't sing your own songs, you, you don't,
Yeah,
in the long run, benefit from that. When did
for
it all
sure.
catch up to you that, hey, what's going on? We need to publishing and stuff. Was it after your third or fourth album or what was?
Yeah. Like so, once we left Jive and we signed with Giant Records, we kind of started trying to negotiate in our favor for things, and we did. I think we got a decent deal, but unfortunately, the label didn't last long. So
Yeah.
they released Tony's solo project, but never got around to the group's project.
Okay, so before we get, because you know, your second album, Keep It Going, had the R. Kelly stuff. Quality Time was really powerful. Especially I'm thinking '92. I'd already moved to Alabama by that time, going to college, and it was one of the it was really one of the songs that we were hitting playing quite a lot, and it was a very different vibe from the first album.
Mm,
Um, then and then you're torn, then you come up with Fateful. I mean, I look at it and thinking from 1990 to 93, you're just releasing 3 albums. Was Jive looking to say, let's just capitalize as much as possible? What was because normally it's like a 2.5 year gap before they release an album, but that was 3 albums in 3 years.
right. Well, I do know that I think the third album was more like an exit program for us because by then we were already looking, to move elsewhere. And so it was like we signed a 3 album deal with them. So
Okay.
now it's like, hey, you're gonna give us a third album before you leave. So, not necessarily rushed, but they wanted to make sure it happened. So we didn't even really promote the second album
The second or
as
third?
the second album as well
Oh,
as we wanted to. And not to mention, we had a lot of personal things going on. The accident happened.
yeah.
One of the members decided he didn't want to be a part anymore. So we were dealing with, a lot of internal issues. So I think the company just saw that as, things are going downhill. Let's go ahead and get this third album done, so we can be prepared for whatever comes. So in the third album, by then, I think that, we were all just kind of dealing with, the changes that came from being in the business and, trying to figure out as, young adults, how do we move forward?
Not long after you guys leave Jive, they sign NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and Britney, and they become the biggest label at the time. What would have been different if you guys are still around with the backing with those guys?
I mean, hopefully we would have been involved, with just a piece of their success. And, I think just being able to have had an opportunity to collaborate with any of those artists, would have sustained us, a lot better. But I think the best way I could put it is their experience from working with us allowed them to be able to, do what they did for NSYNC and Backstreet and
Yeah,
obviously Britney. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that was a positive thing that came from dealing with us.
yeah. I mean, when we do, because I did see the song for you guys, and which was, you know, the car accident, the charges and stuff, and in the midst of coming up as a group and the success and having all those things, how much do you think that derailed the progression of the group, especially when 90s R&B started to become more prominent?
Oh yeah, it was a major factor. I mean, because that's one thing like we discussed in the beginning. We really had good chemistry, with each other as people. So when those things happen, it definitely derails your focus, and there were times when we didn't know what the next move was because we didn't have five members to even support um, the group, and just dealing with the loss of a member and not knowing what the future holds for him personally, that became a heavy burden for us. And then a lot of the other things that happened, Tony was getting a lot of solo artist offers, at the time because of the uncertainty. So those things played a really big role in, a lot of decisions we made. And, so by 94, we were kind of just all over the place. And me personally, I wanted to take a step back, just, hey guys, I am about ready to, to just be at home with my family so that I could regroup mentally and
Okay.
spiritually. Hmm. Yeah.
When I'm not doing this, I'm a psychotherapist working with under 19s, and one of the things that's interesting to find out is how much mentally, we talked about anxiety when you're on the stage and have to overcome that, but how much did it play on you, just the success and everything happening on just you, especially coming from a being like an introvert?
Oh yeah, definitely introvert. So, um, when I go into my cave, I stay in my cave, and I shut a lot of people out. And I regret some of it, but at the same time, I have realized, as I matured, that sometimes those things are best for you, so that you can sustain your well-being, especially mental. Mental health is really an issue that a lot of people don't talk about. But I mean, you can only imagine what success has done to so many people. I mean, you think about Prince, Michael Jackson,
Yeah.
those people who experienced great success, and the way, their careers or their lives ended. Success can be a heavy burden. So I think, like I say, for me, it was just to come home and be around genuine people who are not looking to, get anything from you, as a person or as an artist, what have you. So it would put me in my shell, and I do, I was pretty in sync with my spirituality, that kind of helped me stay balanced as well.
Did you have and it's not until now that we have Simone Biles talking about she had mental health, so she stopped at the Olympics, and we've had Naomi Osaka, so it's like now people can respect if an athlete or an artist says they need time off. Back then, did you feel like if you were struggling with the way things are emotionally, that you could say, look, I need time off to emotionally, mentally get myself together? Or did you have to be, especially Texas, Texas is always strong and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that they necessarily promoted you having, making that decision. But and a lot of times you don't realize it, until it happens that, hey, I need some space, and you think about you're with these people every day in and out. You deal with different emotions, and I mean, just five guys in general. Who are just developing. As people. We, there were times when we clash and we'd have bad days, and don't want to be around each other. So, I would for early on, we would always room. We'd be two guys to a room, but as we got older, we'd have our own room. And I remember times, hey guys, don't call me. I'm not answering the door. And it
Wow.
was never personal. It's just that's what I felt like. I just needed my space, so that I could regroup. And I did develop an anxiety of being around crowds over time, and even still to this day, sometimes it'll happen to me, and I'm like, I just take my my free time and kind of regroup and get my mind right. Hmm.
Now, when you leave Jive, and is it after you left Jive the Giant? You guys signed with Giant, but Tony's the first to come out, or what was the situation?
Um, I mean that it was just that they decided that they wanted to release the Tony Thompson album first, and they told us, hey, we'll start working on a high five when we finish this, and it never happened. So, that was a really depressing moment for us. And, it was reality. Like nobody was trying to sign high five. And, Tony started dealing with, his own personal situation. So at that point, it was really us on a hiatus that we didn't realize was as permanent as it was.
So, when you've had a number one song and you're a recording artist, what does a hide and you're not writing your own tracks and you're dependent on tour money as an income? When you're on hiatus, what do you do to survive?
Uh, Well, I mean, hopefully you were thinking ahead, and you try to put some money back. And that was kind of, my focus. And I mean, after a while, when you realize you're not getting back on, you have to find other means of income. So, eventually, and especially when I had kids, I had a child, hey, I got to find me a job, and I
Wow.
got to start working. So it eventually got to that point, but it took me some time to transition and to, just, hey, if the music industry is not paying my bills, I got to find a way to pay these bills. Hmm.
So, how hard was that to, what was the most, was it hard facing the family to say, yeah, I need to get a job, or was it hard to even people saying, Marcus, you're from High Five? No, how hard was that?
Oh man, that's yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You have to face the music. That's the term to say. But it was difficult, in any situation, you have to be honest with yourself first. And then I think that was what kind of still, kept me stable. Is hey man, you know, instead of sitting at home crying about things, I have to get up and make things happen. You know, and so we did. I guess maybe a lot of people don't know, but we without Tony, we signed to another production company in New York, and we moved to New York from '96 until '99. And we still tried to record music. We tried to shop music, and it just didn't work in our favor. So we did continue to try to make things happen with the group, and a few other members that we tried to work with didn't really have any success. So by '99, 2000, it's time to, be a grown up and, look at yourself as, a regular person again. Hmm.
Mm. So you moved back to Wake to Texas,
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
and so Tony comes out with his solo album. Um, it had some of the biggest producers around. Um, I'm surprised it didn't go gold. I don't think Giant knew how to market the album properly. Um, yeah, we were expecting big things from it, but it didn't do as well as it should. Did when he was going through all that, did you lose contact with him and was just like,
No, no, I like now Tony and I really did have a great relationship during those times. As a matter of fact, after that, He signed with Bad Boy,
Oh
and
yes, yeah, I
yeah,
remember that.
yeah. So with the expectations of just transforming or transitioning into that whole Bad Boy family, we hung out. We would hang out with Puffy, and just his career was still progressing, even though the Giant album didn't do as well. So we still had big things or big expectations for him. Now once he signed with Bad Boy and things didn't turn out the way, that's when a lot of his depression really kicked in. Yeah.
Now, I mean, and we talk about it now, and I do wonder. Now, October is Mental Health Awareness Week, October 15th. Do you guys who talks to who about what you're going through? Is he able to talk to you? Are you able to talk about?
Yeah. I mean, at that time, once again, we're still inexperienced with how, and I don't think anyone's ever prepared, to how do you deal with success and how do you deal with the declining of success. So, at that point, I still didn't know the severity of, what happened between the Bad Boy situation and everything. And I heard, we're hearing rumors about certain things. So wasn't really sure and just never really asked, and we would see, we would cross paths and we would talk. And he was, still trying to make it seem like everything was good. But, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm hearing this and hearing that. And no, no, no. So finally, it kind of just came out, you're not with Bad Boy anymore. And I mean, like I said, he took that really bad. I think he was dealing with his own struggles. So he finally, had got with some people and he tried this new group thing, the return. And I think that's when we kind of just, really had stopped dealing with each other personally at that point, And I wasn't really supportive of it, but a lot of things I was going through at the time, I didn't really want to be a part of it, And he was trying to change things as well. So didn't go well. We ended up having to take him to court behind, just using the name without permission. And things got ugly between us all. But we were able to, you know, to speak and just kind of find an understanding with it all. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the name who took ownership of it of High Five?
Well, at that time, the guy, William Walton, still owned the name.
Okay.
So, and then, the story behind him is one within itself, but his son, who took over his legacy, owned it at the time. And the thing was, I was all for Tony doing his thing, but, you can't replace me and not expect me to just allow it to happen. And that was my thinking on it. So I was always in support of him. You could do high five music whenever you want, but you can't have other people singing with you when I'm a part of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we got control. We got control at that point, and we just didn't allow him to use it as he wished. Yeah.
Well, why do you think he didn't reach out to you guys to say, let's get the Gap Bang back together?
Well, the truth is, he did. Like we had a discussion about it, but the thing was, the people he would allow to be in control, they kind of had their own direction, and I wasn't necessarily in agreement to the way they were, approaching it. So, I reached out to the other guys. Hey, what do y'all think? What do you think? And the truth was, Tony kind of wanted more control, and he wanted to replace certain people, and I wasn't in agreement with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So after the falling out, you guys were you guys able to reconcile after the league court battle?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And but then did you have plans to go back on the road after the court battle, or were you still like, let me do my 9 to 5 and
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, initially we just kind of had the discussion of, hey, let's get everybody, let's try to get the originals who want to be involved back together. Let's try to record some music and then see where it goes from there. And it was like we had several conversations. Things seem to have been going well, and once again, Tony was still kind of dealing with his own thing, and God had a different direction at that point. But literally, so just generally speaking, I know that you know he and Tristan, were not on good terms, and so we finally got a chance to allow them to clear the air. And they spent some time together. We all hung out. We had several discussions, and 2 or 3 weeks later, we went home to be with his maker. So I just I think God had another plan, and it just took us time to process everything.
Yeah. How was, I mean, we lost, I told you about my father passing away just last Christmas. So loss is really a challenge in for all of us. How was it for yourself, especially? Because some of you know as from a kid, did you feel like you could have been done more to help, or?
Of course, you always feel that way. You always kind of think back, like, what could I have done? I mean, I was devastated, and with his loss, I completely did not want to discuss high five. Like, I was done, done. I don't want to be, just disconnect me with it. I felt like, Tony was a great friend of mine, and we were really the only two original members who were consistent through it all. We lost Tori, we lost Pooh, we lost Russell, and so we balanced it as much as we could. So when Tony passed, it was just kind of like, wow, here I am, the only original left, and everybody that I was with from the beginning is not here. And so I just disconnected myself, from the world concerning high five. But um, I mean, like you say, you think about all the things you could have, should have, would have done. One thing I will say that gives me joy is I was able to tell him, man, I love you. I still love you before he passed, and I feel like he received it and he knows it. So that gives me pleasure.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's it's always, you mentioned it being a spiritual person, and you never know, plans of the maker and stuff, but it's always, some talents at, someone without amount of talents, you always think they could have offered more, but you know, but for yourself, after Tony passed, you guys then decide, a couple of years later, do how let's come back together, let's start and record and get back into music. Why then? What was the
Yeah.
spark?
Um, so I think, well, I know that like Tristan, he had desires of doing his solo thing, and so that's kind of where he was at, and he was recording music and started his own production company, and he had some things going for him. And he, would ask me, hey, guy, would you come and support me? And I had no problem supporting him, but I was still kind of unstable. So I'm just like, I don't know how to feel, being around the music business
Okay.
without Tony. I just did not know how to feel. So finally, I went out with him in a few of his performances, some of his recording sessions, and things were starting to feel a little more normal. Obviously the conversation about Tony was so sensitive to me. Like I was just emotional anytime I was around somebody who knew him.
Mm.
But I'll never forget. I think we were in Connecticut. He had done a song, a performance promoting one of his singles, and it was a diehard fan who social media had started by then. And this fan was always in touch with me. Hey, if you ever around, and so it was just interesting that they were in this area, and when he was performing, they came to this show, and we had like a heartfelt conversation. And this fan, like, was there, a high five fan from day one. So they had said to me, I would really like to see how you guys would do it without Tony. And it just resonated with me. And I'm like, wow, to hear this from someone who, genuinely believes in us, because I probably didn't believe it could happen, you know.
Mm.
And so, we stayed in touch for a while. I meant what I said. I would like to see y'all do it. And, you know, after hearing that conversation, really just praying on it, and, hey, so what if there's two or three other people who really believes that, it's possible for us? So, Tristan and I, we kind of put our heads together and we thought about, what's the best way to approach it. And it was not easy. Like we tried several different people, as members, as lead
Mm.
vocalists, and just trying different things. So, God's will, we came across the right people with the right chemistry, and we were able to, get an opportunity to record music and to perform again.
Yeah.
We are king.
So since then, after pre-pandemic, I've noticed that you guys have been doing a few tours. I think I saw something you did in was it San Bernardino? Oh no, San Bernardino in Sacramento.
Sacramento, yes, correct. Mhm.
So what's High Five up to now? Because as I said, I
Uh,
saw a few concerts on IG, but
Yeah, so that's pretty much the focus now, is to just do shows. Really, I think that's definitely one way to get direct profit from it. We recorded an EP some years ago, and the songs were good. Didn't really do great as far as sales. I think the current R&B scene is really shaky and unstable, right? So it just didn't benefit us to really release new music. And we have been recording. We haven't come up with the right plan and approach to release anything new. So we just kind of focus on doing shows, anything like the '90s throwbacks.
yeah.
Is really working in our favor. So we just focus on having a good show, and letting the fans hear the music, and share the good memories from those songs. Yeah.
Now, a lot of questions that my audience will ask is, have you guys ever considered re-recording your biggest hits just so you own the
Um,
masters of that and just update it a little bit?
right. Now that has been a discussion. Me personally, some classics just shouldn't be touched, and I'm just not in that space right now. I don't know if anyone is gonna do it like Tony did it. Now, for the benefit of us owning the masters, it's a great idea, but I don't know if it would be a great idea for us to redo it, thinking it would be a better situation, or make the song just as great. So I don't know, and that's just a personal opinion of mine. Some songs kind of lose, their relevance when you start to try to redo it, and it's not the same.
Yeah,
But anything is possible, not to cut you off. Anything is possible. Just right now, I don't feel that way. Hmm.
yeah, because what happens sometimes we see bands say we're going to come up with a remake of different classics. So they'll do an album of Stevie Wonder hits or an album of Boyz II Men hits and stuff. And I'm like, that's great. Why don't you do an album of your own hits?
Right,
Maybe do it
exactly.
acoustic, get some of the piano singing, she's playing Hard to Get, but doing a jazzy version of it. A
Right,
Christmas, so I'm thinking with it because then we remember those songs, but we're hearing it differently. So you're not
right,
re-recording it and producing it just like it was. So you're not using the old tracks, but you're doing a more mature version of the songs you recorded. So it's not taken away from the classic, the original, but it's an interpretation with you guys 40 years later in a different
right.
space.
And like I say, I'm open for that, and that could be very well a possibility and a way to approach it. So, we have had different ideas, over the years since then, and like I said, I think now our focus is just really trying to get the shows, and to be able to profit it and keep the shit selling, because record sales right now,
Yeah.
not really the strength for a lot of 90s artists,
Yeah.
But I mean, like I say, you never know what next year may bring for us. I mean, especially with the pandemic and things of that nature, we may have to take a different approach. Hmm.
So how do you manage now? Because if you live in Texas and the shows come up, how do you guys rehearse and prepare and to put on the shows?
Well, the best way we do it is we try to do as much as we can individually. Now, there is one other member here in Waco with me, and
Okay.
the other three guys, well, two are in New York, New Jersey, and one's in Virginia. So it was easier for us to travel to New York and everybody's there, and we would rehearse. So typically, when we are changing the show or doing something new, we'll try to get together a week or so in advance, and prepare. But for the most part, we just all travel from different places, go there, try to get there a day or two in advance, get ready and do the shows, and that's how it's working for us.
Okay. And are you getting a lot of calls to do shows as High Five? People thinking, yeah, we need to get you guys back on a bit.
We do well. I mean, definitely, I feel like we should be getting more, and I do know that some people, are still kind of hesitant because, without Tony, they see it differently, But things have definitely progressed for us. I think 2017 was a really great year for us. We did a back to the 80s tour, and the turnout was great. And ever since then, the momentum has kind of been in our favor. So,
Okay.
we try to do, at least 5 or 6 shows every 6 months, and if we can, we'd like to put two a month. But it doesn't always go that way. But
Yeah.
we stay kind of consistent, just in the people in the public's eye. And some promoters have, trusted us to come back and bring us on. Mhm.
Okay. I mean, as I said, what would always help is the more videos and social media clips that we have of you guys puts you back in the audience perspective. Like, yeah, we haven't heard from High Five in a while. Um, as I said, not necessarily new music, but the songs that really inspire us. People like to see them and hear them again, like Jodeci. People would want to hear their classics. They if they came out with a new album now, not everyone's going to rush and buy it because the generation who watch my show are mainly in their mid 40s, um, and they just love the old stuff. I want to keep hearing the old stuff, and unless the new stuff is very similar to the old stuff, it's kind of hard. And our buying habits are different too. I mean, I don't know if I even know where to buy a CD and where to play it. So, you know,
No,
it's like, and most of us don't really stream on Spotify and stuff. It's quite different the way we consume music now. That's why we like to listen to it live. So it'll be interesting, as I said, yeah, if you guys did more um, clips of yourself singing some of the old tracks, and yeah, as I said, it's an idea I always hope people would do. I know Boyz II Men did it. They re-recorded some of their own classics, so at least not just about owning the masters, but it was giving it a different interpretation of some of the songs and stuff. So yeah, it's something. It'll be interesting to see how next year is and stuff.
right, right. Yeah. So I mean, in a nutshell, it's been an interesting journey, and I'm pleased where I am today in my life, and I'm proud to, speak about my success and, the things that my life has developed into, So um proud to say that, I'm a current High Five member and I'm still promoting the music and I'm keeping Tony's name alive, Roderick's name alive, and all the members who were there. I hope that they can, appreciate the fact that we're still, keeping the name alive and allowing the fans to just experience those precious memories from the music that we put out.
Yeah, definitely. And so it's definitely been really great hearing your story and your journey. one of the things I always do when I do acts, doing interviews, always to ask if you were stuck on an elevator and they said, look, it may be an hour or two before we get you out, but we can play a movie for you while you wait. What movie would you request?
Wow, wow, interesting. I mean, at the moment, I've been watching Godfather. That's one of my favorite movies. I try to watch it once or twice a year. Just go through all the episodes on the series. But that is one of my favorite movies, and I've been on it. So right now, I would say Godfather.
Godfather, okay. So they're about to put
Yeah.
on Godfather for you, but they said, look, it'll take 5 minutes. We'll play a track, a song. What song do you request?
Whew. Wow. Stuck in an elevator. I may want something more up tempo. I don't even know. Man, quite interesting. I would say let's play some Dougie Fresh, the show.
Oh, okay. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Because what happens, a lot of people just go fall back to one of their favorite tracks, like, yep, this is my must play track and stuff. But yeah, and I think the elevator is more so just a sense of if you had. I didn't want to say if you had if this was your last day on earth, what song would you play? But so,
Right, right. No, I
so
get it. And
yeah.
so
But
that's why I was thinking play something up tempo that, kind of keeps your spirit, high and
yeah,
strong, close to something slow and kind of depressing, right?
yeah. But you mentioned about the state of R&B now. What are your thoughts, as an R&B artist about the way R&B is now, and as are you listening to anyone new?
Wow. To be honest, I'm stuck on '90s. I just kind of stay in my era. Now I listen to like Chris Brown. I don't know if you consider that new, but anything that's really current, sad to say. Like if I hear it, I may know it, but I'm not necessarily familiar with any of these new artists. And I guess from my perspective, R&B is, you know, it's almost not here anymore. You don't necessarily hear, or at least the R&B that we're used to, or what we consider, because nowadays everything is about money and women, and not necessarily about the emotions that come with relationships. So, yeah, the state of R&B is really, really low right now. So my station stays on '90s playlist.
But how does an art? So how does artists make money now, especially from your generation? Is it?
Well, it's streaming. Like obviously, our music is still streaming. The fans still listen to it, and anytime you have a number one show, radio show, definitely podcasts and things of that nature. So you get streaming revenues from it being played, and that's one good thing. I like it now. It's direct. You don't have to go through anybody. So you just set it up, and you find out, and you get your money from it. So I mean, times have definitely changed for sure, and the independence of it is a good thing. Mhm.
Yeah, I would hope to hear Quality Time and Kissing Game and Just Can't Handle It and a 2022 version with the five of you guys, just because it's what it does. It means that you're taking not ownership as in just the masters, but you're almost reestablishing that this is us, and we're not doing Tony's voice. We're doing it in a different interpretation. And as I said, there's something sentimental about a group saying we've matured, and we're singing the same songs in a more mature way.
Wow.
Yeah, I think just can't handle that. Can you imagine if somebody's playing it on a piano, and you have maybe Mr. Talkbox doing his little thing at the back, and it's just a little bit different,
Right.
because it's as I said, it's bringing the old with the new. Because some of the R&B songs that do well now, they sample '90s stuff. And even
Hmm.
Bruno Mars was going back to the '90s, and when he
Hmm.
came out with his big album, so there is a call for it. But that's what I'm saying. if you were to reinvent the old songs, not to take away what Tony did, but to say this is us how we are now singing it, because you're not going to be doing the backflips and dancing the same way. You just can't handle it, but you're singing it in a very different way and have a different interpretation. So as I said, I'll just hope you guys would do something like that, and that would be your playlist would be very much your songs, and I think it's a Jive can't say anything about that.
Right,
So
right.
anyway,
Well, you know, I would definitely take that into consideration. I appreciate you saying that because maybe we can build on that idea. Hmm.
yeah, it's so the fans then remember. Oh yeah, I remember that, and as I said, I just believe it's it's how you really reconnect with us who haven't seen you guys in a while, and how
Right.
we don't start to say, oh, there's no Tony, so what's the point? And I think
Mm.
that's when you have such a very influential lead singer like Tony, it's quite easy to say, oh, no Tony, no point.
Yeah,
But
no,
when you are re-recording in your own style with the vocals that you guys have now, we connect to the song and we connect with you guys, and we're
right.
able to say yes,
Makes
we can
sense.
dig this. So that was just my 10 cents
No,
there.
I appreciate that. You know, like I'm hearing you, and maybe I will sleep on it and see how we can come about it and approach that for sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate, the time. I know that you guys have been, the first time we connected, you guys had the floods out in the snowstorm and stuff out in Allen, Texas, and things like that. But it's been really great to hear your story. I know a lot of people would definitely be interested in the scene. As I said, we didn't want to focus so much on the group, but it's always about your individual journey, how you've made it through. And if you were to give an advice to any up and coming artist now, what would be your final word of advice for anyone that's trying to get into the industry?
uh, Learn as much as you can, you know, and like you said, you want to be able to own and control your music because that is the most productive way to approach it. So you want, you know, and if you can write or produce at any point, take advantage of it, you know, and be yourself. Don't let the music control you. You control it. Mhm.
Very good advice. So with that, I definitely appreciate it. It is around 11:15 at night here, so
Wow.
but it's yeah. But I definitely appreciate the time. I would think that probably in a couple of weeks, yeah, I'll get the editing done and start to push it out and stuff, both mainly on YouTube, but both on IG and hopefully. Do you guys have any shows coming up between now and the
Oh,
end of the year?
yes, yes. We have. I think we'll be in San Bernardino on October 2nd. Then we'll be back in California in it's not Sacramento. It's another one. I can't think of the name of it. But it's two of them. Two of them in October in California. I think. I'm sure one of them is with Troop. As a matter of fact, it's us and Troop. I think it's October 24th. Um, God, I can't think of it.
It's fine.
But so yeah, and then we have. I think we have some already booked for 2022. So we're
Okay.
looking forward to that as well, and we're hoping maybe the holidays will pick up for us. Hmm.
Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
hopefully, as I said, we one of the things I know that by doing, but well, by one of, I mean, as I said, John, when I put out his interview 2 weeks ago, and people were really able to reconnect with Truth, because it's quite easy to remember and forget. And once you have, our channel has, as I said, a very strong 90s fan core, and by hearing and seeing and connecting, it does have a way of resonating with people, just to be eager to see you guys live. So that's one of the hopes. So before September, for October, I'll put this out and almost use it as a small marketing tool for you guys as
Hey,
well.
well, let's work together and help each other. And I would love for something to come from it, you know, and maybe someone else will want to hear more of the story, want to interview us. But thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate you making the time. And as I said, it's I don't know if what did you have an expectation when um
Well, to be honest, I don't. I mean, I guess like, I am probably the one who can share the stories from the beginning, to current. So I just kind of prepare myself for, hey, I'm gonna share my truth and that's it. But I'm well pleased. I am well pleased. You asked great questions and you conducted the interview well.
yeah, it's always about the person, and the show must be the music is through the ups and downs. How did the music must have kept you, as that was the core. You wanted to play sports, but you got a chance through an injury to take on music. Through the ups and downs, you're still in the music, and so that's the thing is how important the music is. I'm not the fame and not the money,
Right,
but it's the music,
right,
and so that's
right.
the core. So hearing your life story in and your high five is part of that, but not all of it. Is
Yeah.
what the audience connects with. They want to know the person behind the music, and that's why we focused on you. Because if I had the five of you there, it would be very much high five today, but it doesn't touch on the journey that you've made and the sacrifices and the challenges. I had Tabitha Duncan from Cut Close, and she said when they lost their record, she had to get a job as a babysitter, and how
Mm,
challenging it was to have a
mhm,
hit record and now to be a babysitter. And
mhm. Yeah,
Buddy Wink from Intro, he
right.
went and became a new NYPD.
Police officer, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
police
I'm good
officer.
friends.
Okay,
I'm good friends with all of them. Yeah, we get a chance to cross paths. As a matter of fact, we cut close and intro were just at the last show we were performing at. So
okay.
yeah, yeah. So and I mean those are great stories to hear, and we're all able to still be on the stage together. So
Well, as fans,
God,
it was a shock to us. Like, what? Because
hmm
the assumption is you have a hit record, you're making all this money, and you're sitting back, pandemic or no pandemic, you've just got this big cash flow coming in, and we didn't realize about the contracts and the business. And Don Robinson
right,
from Invoke saying they only got 2 cents a record per girl, and so yeah, so it's been sad to hear the stories, but the whole idea is like, well, you've now moved on and this is where you are. But that's been the thing that has surprised all of us. It's been hard to hear because we only heard the TLC and the New Edition stuff, but we didn't realize how widespread it has been for all of you guys.
right,
Um,
right.
yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, thankfully, man, we still have an opportunity. But I will say this, like, just to appreciate those stories, because we all have a different path, and to be able to be mentally and physically healthy and able to still tell your story and move forward, is the joy and living life, because some people don't know how to get through those moments, right?
yeah. And we don't want to wait until somebody passes away, then we celebrate, oh, remember this group and stuff. So
Right,
that's why
right.
it's one of the things I'm hoping that the more people we talk to now, we can celebrate and appreciate and support you guys and tour and concert and really reminisce and stuff. So, but I appreciate the time, appreciate the and stuff.
Well,
And when
thank
it goes
you.
out, I'll let you know.
Please do. Well, just keep me updated, man. I would love to see how it comes out. All right.
Definitely so.
Well,
Okay,
thank you so much once again, man. You enjoy your evening, and please feel free to reach out whenever you want. Okay.
definitely will do so.
All right. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of Halftime Chat. Please remember to subscribe, share, and comment. But most importantly, why don't you become a member of Halftime Chat? We've got amazing videos, amazing perks, and being able to support the channel. But anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.
I never participated in that category.
And somewhere in between
us or even loving us, on which I did miss you with
What was it like growing up?
she's still making an impact on 4 houses down.
I have a couple of pieces.
Trying to get this one and that one.
That works for you, but just for me,
I found this game.
No. Okay, you okay?
They don't understand what Jodeci boys win all.
Play it.
These guys, they all work together.
I mean, I love all different genres.